unavailable with love. There is something more than nothing in the emptiness at my side. There's a sense of two people that no one could divide. When I'm in the company of one, even after the years have gone, alone is not lonely. I am my own one and only. Others can visit when I give permission. Choosing myself is not a decision, it's an instinct, it's identity, of understanding what is meant for me and acting on my behalf as my other half, with love.
Baby, keep me in your pocket. Try real hard not to drop it. You get me real high like a rocket, and I'll be falling down on Darlington Town. You only want me when I'm at play. You only look at me when I look away. You blow up a balloon, then you let me drift away, and I'll be falling down on Darlington Town. It was a sweet time. It was a real time, falling down on Darlington Town. You only come in via the back door. I wanna say no, but I am floored by the way you lure me into your cannon. You light me on fire, sending me higher, and I'll be falling down on Darlington Town. I have found out now that I am pretty lonely. I have found out now that I have only got you, only.
Want to sing? Yeah, might as well.
The LGBTQ plus gaze will find a way to settle on the eyes of another with softness and desire. The question is always on the mind, will they gaze back? Through the crowd, will they know? Will they run off with me into the woods, to the toilets, to the abandoned pool? Performed for the last time at the Hippodrome, and Johnny took me out for a cig and to gaze. We enjoyed doing this together, out the stage door and into the wild.
Vesta is the most famous male impersonator, and she is the most highly paid. Early on in the era, they wore breeches. A Victorian gentleman and the Edwardian gentleman would see a little bit of leg. Remember, he's the one paying for the family tickets. Then, as it gets further into the Edwardian era, once Bertie comes to the throne and becomes Edward VII, morality changes very quickly in the country. So the girls' tunics get shorter and shorter and shorter until they're impossibly short. That was the selling point. Truthfully, the reason for having these ladies as principal boys was that it sold tickets. Because if they played a boy, they were allowed to show their legs. It was a skilled art of impersonating a man. And it appealed to the ladies in the audience because in an age pre-emancipation, and no woman could have actually gone out in public wearing a man's tailored suit. So you had that frisson of the ladies being so taken by this, but another frisson, of course, of the gentlemen, because this is astonishing to them. It's almost like a magic act. How can that possibly be a woman? Dorothy Ward is what I'd call the longest serving principal boy. When she's a young girl, she plays boy for the first time. I'd be surprised if she was 15. As she got older, her hats got bigger. Picture of her in 1957 somewhere with the most massive hat. Two marvellous quotes from her, actually. One was, "I will have to retire soon. I want people to enjoy the pantomime and not wonder if I've got my own teeth." She married a pantomime dame. They were a double act. It was Dorothy Ward and Glenville. The money she accrued was a lot more than one would have said came from her salary. And she began to acquire a lot of jewellery. She comes on as Jack and the Beanstalk, where they're very poor and they have to sell the cow. Well, she comes on as Jack and she's in her very poor ragged costume, but she's absolutely glittering. And he says, "Dorothy, darling, would you take the diamonds? And I'm not leaving them in the dressing room. It's not safe." "Well, we could get your dresser to..." No. "Well, no, just get rid of them." Very well. So the next day she comes on, they've opened the show, she walks in, she goes, "Hello, boys and girls, glitter, glitter, glitter. Look what the good fairy gave me." She was another very, very famous principal boy. 1890, Beauty and the Beast. They told Vesta Tilley and her husband that she was booked to play the part of King Courage in Beauty and the Beast. It's going to sell out. It's making a fortune. Huge amount of money paid to Vesta Tilley. So they get into rehearsal, and it's at that point that she's told, "So you're King Courage, you fall in love with Belle, and then the spell goes on you and you turn into the Beast." And she goes, "Pardon?" He goes, you become the Beast." What do you mean?" They said, you have the like scary beast mask." "Excuse me." So she goes to see her husband and said, "I was employed to play King Courage. I was not employed to play the Beast." And they said, "No, it's the same person." And she said, "And where in the contract does it say that?" And they said, "Well, everybody knows that he turns into the Beast." "I don't know." "But you have to play it." "No, I don't." So we're in rehearsals. So at this point, she finally gets her husband to agree that she will play King Courage, but not the Beast. That part will be played by the stage manager in a mask. These pantos were over 3.5 hours long. And then she comes in at the very end, transforms. "Oh, here I am, I'm the prince," and marries her. Finale, end of show. So she's in the first 10 minutes and the last 5. But there isn't anything in the contract to stop her doing other work in between. So she crams in 2 music halls during the pantomime each day. So she gets paid a fortune for appearing on stage for 15 minutes and 2 halls that she can walk to from Drury Lane, where she does her act, for another fortune. His famous number was called "All the Nice Girls Like a Sailor." And she would smoke a pipe on stage and light a pipe, pack it, smoke it, put her swagger bag on the back. She was still doing this. I think she was about 80 when she stopped doing it.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you tell me who Jutta Stensgaard is and how she's related to the Darlington Hippodrome?
Yes, so Jutta Stensgaard is a Danish former actress who played Robin Hood at the Hippodrome in 1979.
What interested you in Jutta and Principal Boys?
So I think it's a fascinating insight into the way gender has been constructed through theatre. So often drag is kind of used as a sort of a joke in pantomime especially, but with Principal Boys you have these kind of serious lead roles who are strong and powerful, and you have gender nonconformity being used in that way. And I think in the context of the Northeast it's particularly interesting as well, because there's a sort of a long cultural history of gender nonconformity and drag. It goes back to the Romans, but also sort of northern traditions and the Victorians and so on. And so here with Uta's role, you have her as a film actress playing overtly queer roles in the decade before she came here to the theatre, and then playing this kind of strong lead role as Robin Hood.
Talk about the quest for Uta.
So Uta's been really elusive. So she retired in the end of the 1970s and moved to America and became a sort of conservative American talk show host, and then retired. And so she's been very difficult to sort of hear from. She's very much reclusive. And so what we wanted to do is sort of get some of her perspectives about what it was like playing this role at that time. We managed to track down a Danish horror fan called Nicholas Barbano, who interviewed Uta in the 1990s, 1997, and we managed to find from him his interview with Uta where she mentions the role. So it was really interesting to kind of get that snapshot at the end of her kind of career on how she felt looking back at that role. So it's a cult horror magazine. We managed to track it down. It was actually went out in 2005. So he did the interview in the end of the 1990s, and it was published in 2005. And so this is what the interview looked like. We've got another page of the interview that actually has a photo of her in the role as Robin Hood. So that's the costume she had, and this was a promotional photo from the show at the time. So it's just fascinating that we've got this kind of snapshot into her career at this time.
What have you discovered about Uta Stensgaard?
So it's interesting because she sort of recounts these memories through the lens of being an American conservative. So she's quite critical about Hollywood, for example, and about liberal culture, as she calls it. But she never says she regrets her kind of queer scenes in cinema. She explicitly says she doesn't regret them. At that time in her life, she says she found girls gorgeous. She liked that she experienced different things. And when she thinks about her role as Robin Hood at the Hippodrome, the gender nonconformity of the role explicitly kind of sticks out in her memories, something she references, and she actually says it was part of the theatre culture in the north of England at the time. And she remembers singing The Impossible Dream in the role, which is a really interesting song in the context, because it's all about that strength to fight the unbeatable foe and reach the unreachable star. And so you think about what it must have been like for like a young queer audience member in the 1970s watching that song sung by a strong drag non-conforming hero, and it must have been very powerful.
One of the best parts of this project has been diving into the archive in a way that we wouldn't normally do. One area that we've really sort of delved down into has been pantomime, particularly because we've been so interested in the idea of Principal Boys, this idea of these young actresses playing these lead roles. And one that we found out quite a bit about was a production of Red Riding Hood in the 70s. And Red Riding Hood isn't a particularly popular pantomime. It's really an amalgamation of every different fairy tale they can think of to kind of put into one storyline. So they'll have lots of side stories, regular famous fairy tale characters or myth characters that you might know, then they're all kind of pulled in together to create this sort of mad production. And this production of Red Riding Hood was really about Robin Hood. And they had a performer called Jut Stensgaard, who was, I think, a Danish actress, as the lead, as Robin Hood in this production. And quite often you will find, if you have a principal boy as the lead male role, you'll often have a principal boy playing the supporting role as well, so the prince's friend. So in Cinderella, you have Prince Charming and then Dandini. So if Prince Charming is played by a woman, then Dandini is also played by a woman. But if Prince Charming is played by a man, then often Dandini is played by a man. So when we have Red Riding Hood here, Jutta is playing Robin Hood and René Barr is playing Will Scarlet. And René Barr would come back over the years and has played principal boys, but also the lead female roles as well. But we recently got a subscription to the British newspapers online and managed to find a review of Red Riding Hood, of that one production, and that had Jut Stensgaard in, and they talked about what an amazing performer she was, how amazing she looked in the costume, and also René Barr, who played, as he said here, played Cinderella last year, but came back as Will Scarlet this time.
Fearless. There's a woman who lives on the corner of my street. She never found a person that she couldn't defeat with the glint in her eye. Try as they might, no one could fight the woman who owns herself. She walks in a way that is regal. Sight is sharp as an eagle. As she surveys each scene, she is queen of the space she inhabits, the rest of us just rabbits in the headlights of her vision. And what incredible precision she masters with her words. It is as though I've never heard anyone else talk this way before. Stood at the door in her ball gown, ready to go into the town for broccoli and bread. My grandma goes red to see her. She cannot imagine, she cannot possibly fathom the power of being herself.
Ghostbug doesn't have a gender. Ghostbug make a drink in a blender. We can summon Ghostbug if we all have a drink. Ghostbug will try to befriend you. Ghostbug for a spooky bender. Ghostbug have a drink on us. It's like an alcoholic slush puppy. Ghostbug where you left in the will. Ghostbug to give the cutest chills. Ghostbug, 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 Ghostbug.
Well, I've got a cocktail recipe for you that'll get the spirit right back in you quite literally, because it brings on a ghostly possession by none other than the ghost bug. I've left this out in the moon for 24 hours. You simply can't get possessed unless there's a blender involved. Extra, 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 extra. I got 5. And then you give it a shake. need lemon. No ghost is going to want to possess you if you're already in their realm.
Ladled with love. I don't write about love, not the romantic kind. My writing is a place that I find some peace of mind, and that has no part of it, it's not a fit. So how do I fit something new? What's a writer to do? I'm ace but not hollow. Feelings still follow, and the way that I express that is by making a mess in the kitchen, with banana bread treats to greet my friends, and what mends any pain they may feel, what helps them to deal with it more than a plate of spaghetti. You can forget the problems, put any regret on rest with the best sugar-filled pancake that I can make. If I'm ever popping through with a brownie or two, you can tell that our friendship is true, because it was ladled with love for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Darlington Hippodrome stage the wonderful, the fabulous, the mesmerizing Pansy Montague, and watch her remove her sheet.
And that's when he said that I did it. And I thought, that's pretty weird. I would have never done anything like that in my life. I don't have a violent streak in me. I've never been violent. I'm a soft, gentle flower, gently swaying in the breeze.
Exactly. Then you go like dart, and then dart, and then dart, and then dart. Shall we go in? Oh my god, did you hear that? You understood my nightmare, tearing through the sea. I love it when you do that, and then I love to see. How you tell me after everything you feel.
Eat your heart out. Do you ever feel the echo in your steps? The best kept secret is one on repeat in your mind, one that will always bind you to place. Whether you want to face it all again or not, what choice have you got? No matter how resistant, the echoes are persistent. The mist rolls in the time that I kissed you by the marina. I've never seen a scene more demanding of my time, commanding that I'm always looking. But I'm done cooking up excuses. The truth is you weren't ready for steady, and I ran ahead with the idea before the person. And I won't worsen my own mental state anymore. I'm going to close that door because what is it good for? The memory serves me a warning meal, and I can feel stronger now I'm no longer at the center of the echo. The noise begins to slow. So eat your heart out, my dear. I do not fear how you reappear anymore. I'll go back to the pier and know that I can find myself out here.
One thing that's kind of missing from the archives is that sort of whether those conversations happened in the past, like whether there was any sort of acknowledgement of LGBTQ plus people in the theatre. I mean, we have a lot of like evidence of stories and stuff, but not necessarily like the actual people that staffed the venue.
My name is Andy Hutchinson Clish, and I'm Senior House Manager here at Darlington Hippodrome. Faded memories that sort of get to shine every now and again, and that's why I think it's good that we sort of showcase different elements of the archive, and also that through engagement and the exhibitions. A lot of our performers over the years would not have been able to be out and be their authentic selves, that they could be on stage entertaining hundreds of people. But there must have been a lot of sadness that sat with them. But we've had to wait hundreds of years for some tolerance and some societal acceptance.
So my name is Barbara and my job role is front of the house as assistant. I think even just the staff, we are quite like varied, so there's a lot of different people and managers, and everyone is understanding and acceptable, if that's the right way, so no one feels like left out or just everyone feels welcome. I think the main thing is like you feel safe in here. It's like it doesn't matter what you identify as or who you are, so you don't feel judged, or you can wear whatever you want, come in whatever you want. We're not gonna judge.
I'm Heather Tarrant-Jones. I'm the Programming and Development Director at Darlington Hippodrome. Creativity naturally lends itself to being able to identify as you want to identify. So you can be flamboyant, slide under the radar if you want. You can be out of the closet, you can be in the closet. I guess, yeah, it just gives you that freedom and safety net. And I think the really nice thing here is that the leadership team would probably identify as queer. So I'm kind of the figurehead of the organisation, and I'm very relaxed and open with all our team, but also some of the other leaders of other teams would also identify as gay or queer, and I think that just it creates this lovely atmosphere across the team where anything's a go, like anything's acceptable. Although I do identify as a gay woman, it doesn't really fall onto my agenda that that's who I am. But perhaps outwardly other people who I work with or other people that I come across, that could be something that's in their mind, like, oh, that's Heather, she's the gay theatre director. And I often have to like skew my mind with that, because in my own family life and my life with my friends, we are who we are. And it's kind of an afterthought that I happen to have a female partner.
My name is Jade Kelly, and I am a box office sales assistant over at the Hippodrome.
I remember my daughter had actually went to the Cinderella showing for the pantomime. And I remember that she was just so excited to go. On the way up there, she kept going, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. I think the thing I loved the most about it was when I was working stage door. It's still so cool to talk to somebody who's going to be in such a big production. I think she was probably the lead, but oh my gosh, she was so pretty. I remember she had sunglasses on, but she made me think of Marilyn Monroe in a way. It was just that, I don't know why that just randomly popped into my head, but she looked so much like her, and she was so gorgeous. As a bisexual, woman, it's hard when you tell somebody that you are bisexual, and immediately they go to, oh, but you're married to a man. To have that person that you can just be open with and is a huge relief on people. It's a huge weight off of them, because then they can immediately, if they feel comfortable enough to come to that person, it helps a lot with the mental health as well. And I think that if we had more people like that, I think we would probably see a lot less damage in the mental health of especially teens and, people that are just discovering that they have these feelings.
So my name's Kevin, and I work within the box office, but I'm also a casual house manager as well. When we had Rocky Horror Show on, they weren't scared to come in drag, or there's like some women were dressed as men, some men were dressed as women. So I just think it's nice to see that people are thinking like screw gender, and just back when I was a bit younger, like some of these people were quite young, and I think I probably wouldn't have the guts to do that. I feel a lot more comfortable myself being gay in public, like not that I'm going to parade around in a thong and be like, I'm gay, but I don't know, I don't feel like I need to hide it anymore like I probably did when I was a teenager, or like finding these things out myself. There's kids that I teach that are still quite openly feminine and things, and the parents look like they almost egg them on to be like that, whereas when I was a kid it was just it was frowned upon that I wanted to go dancing and stuff. So it's just nice to see the whole thing evolving, the world starting to evolve a bit more now. I know that gay people do still get a lot of homophobia and transphobia or whatever else, but I feel like going now compared to 20 years ago when I was younger, and I think people are a lot more understanding and a lot more welcoming, but there's still a long way to go.
I'm Kate, I'm the Heritage Learning and Engagement Officer, and my job at the theatre is really all things heritage. In some ways, we are so privileged that we're at this point where there is so much freedom of speech, and there are not going to be the same repercussions that there really would have been even 20 years ago in some cases. It's not the punchline to a joke anymore. It would always be when we look through some of the 70s archive material, it was like, don't worry, you know who the gay one is because of how they've got this voice or how they're dressed. And it's just not like that now. You know, if we put the same shows on now, I don't even think we could, because they are so entrenched in not even subtle homophobia. Quite a few pantos now, the princess doesn't even end up with the prince. There was a really great one where the princess was like, I don't know you, we're not getting married, we can be friends, but I'm not going to marry you just because you found a shoe. I think it is a tricky one when we're talking about historics and the archives, is that terminology. We had this discussion at the start that the language that is used in the archive we just wouldn't use at all today, relating to all sorts of things like ethnicity.
Can you just move your chin down slightly?
Like this?
Yeah, great. Can you look a little more close but less comfortable?
I'll try.
Can you grip his arm tighter? Fabulous, fabulous.
Can I try this?
Keep looking at me. Keep looking at me.
Don't worry, I don't want to look away.
Smize into the camera.
I can only smize.
Can you get a little closer?
How about this?
Closer?
Now?
Less close?
Vad är jag kring detta nå? Is she so? Pukni mangiari, then we can kakuvari. Is she so? She's no butch, but I can tell when I've ordered those news. I'd like to scarp her with that Donna so dolly. Scarp her from the Sharpie, scarp her into the car seat, where she could LMO. Oh my Alamo. Are you sure she's not now? My arms never moved me, but I don't have the answers for this colonial me. Well, I just got my national anthem, so have another bad week.
I started doing pantomime in the 1970s. All my boys that I worked in pantomime with, principal boys, were girls. I did pantomime every year. I've done 48 of them now consecutively. Got those pantomimes right up from, say, about 1974 through to about 1995. All my boys were girls. It was about 95, I did the Birmingham Hippodrome. And that to me was the first time I'd ever done it with actually men playing the part of the men. And that continued until I went to Darlington. And at the Civic Darlington, there were girls. And then by 95, people are going, I'm not sure if children quite understand that the lady in the short dress is a man. Tells us she's a man. Everybody treats her like a man. But are children going to actually get this? So they change basically over to men playing it. The next year, it was boys and remained ever since and still is to this day. I believe the last time I ever worked with a lady on stage as a boy was the year 2000 at the Darlington. It was called the Civic then, it's now called the Hippodrome. The first principal boy ever, I think, was a lady called Eliza Povey, and I'm going to say that's going to be like 1819 at Drury Lane. It doesn't catch on. It doesn't come back till the 1880s. That's when full-time, all the boys are boys. You would never, there'd been a couple of exceptions in the whole history of music hall and pantomime. That's George Lashwood, who was a very popular singer, Fred Barnes, a very popular singer. They put them into pantomime as boys, and people went, well, this is ridiculous. How can that boy play a boy? That's stupid. Where did they go? They looked like fabulous ladies, but they told us that they were boys and we accepted it. Exactly the same as what I do for a living in pantomime is I dress up as a lady and everybody accepts it. I have a horrible feeling that in the future at some point, what could happen to dames is what happened to the principal boys.